What's going on, guys? It's time for Around the Hearth with the end of Planar Crossroads, and oh yeah, Donald's here too. So, as always, as recently, hey, we've been talking about the Pathfinder playtest, those blogs that have come out that I cover on the channel in depth. I read them. You all seen them. You watch them. This is our kind of our open forum thing. Everybody in the Discord channel we're in right now has an invite to come jump in. So it stands to reason there might be a couple people in the middle of this. Just hi, we're here. But for the meantime, again, it's myself, Adam and Kane from IOPC, and Donald talking today about what we can do in downtime, as well as yesterday's blog where we see our skills all crunched down really hard by about half. So I've definitely, I have a lot of opinions about the things I've read so far, but I want to turn it over to the other three because I don't get to hear their opinions on this stuff quite as much. So downtime, gentlemen, how do we feel about the crafters getting changed around?
Mainly playing first edition, I sort of like the other classes being crafters, but I don't really like the attention being taken away from the arcane casters mostly. But I do like having each character making their own gear when it comes to downtime. It definitely helps speed the game up, as in Adam's game. It took forever to make all the magic items.
Yeah, but we're a six-man party, so we're exception to the rule, I would say. But no, I agree. In first edition, if you didn't have an item crafter, you put yourself at a humongous disadvantage, and in bigger parties, it's not in their wheelhouse to build that way, but in Rune Lords, I've been in the back of my head thinking real hard about getting Mal or Colin, one or the other, to pick up Craft Wondrous item, because Mazes well and truly can't spit out everything for us that we all want in even 10 months of downtime. I do like in second edition how some things have different class requirements. For example, if you want to craft a Holy Avenger, you have to be a lawful good paladin. That's one of the requirements.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I like that I think that getting a Holy Avenger from a neutral, from a chaotic neutral wizard crafter would be weird.
I think it's hilarious. But that's the nature of chaotic neutral, I suppose.
I don't know. I like the flavor of it. I've never really seen the Holy Avenger. I mean, it's a super iconic piece of minutia in Pathfinder and D&D, but I don't think I've ever actually seen one, anyone use one.
I haven't either.
As a GM and player, I never seen a Holy Avenger, or any iconic weapons like that been used. But I do definitely like having the requirement, having certain classes and alignment just being in its descriptive and lore.
Yeah, because now it's not everyone hug the wizard / if the wizard didn't take these 3 feats, then we're all screwed. The party's at a huge disadvantage, that kind of thing, throughout the whole campaign.
Spend your money.
Yeah, for sure. On the subject of that, it's way cheaper. So cheaper.
Yeah, I think they're going to be devaluing the currency, which I'm happy about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they're devaluing the currency, and you look at those prices of 36k or whatever it was for one of those items, that suddenly becomes 360k if they just bump it down by 10%. So
that's fair.
There will be a grind as far as monetary value goes. I'm sure that's just the nature of games, and trying to put some kind of barrier to entry to some of those high power items for those low power people. Aside from mechanical drawbacks for using something that's too powerful for you, which I actually like better, but my thing with the crafting as far as the money goes is that you can finally make some fair money out of it. It says it's going to be comparable to doing performances and stuff like that, because the Bard was the one. I mean, I am sure there have been campaigns where the the only reason that certain items were bought was because the bard was busy every night of downtime putting on a show to make sure that the party had some gold coming in when there weren't any adventuring happening.
I don't know.
If that's the case, that bard had to play his butt off because, like,
Yeah,
What bard doesn't?
you couldn't make any
just
money
saying,
in first
you can
edition
make
doing
gold.
that. Here's 2 gold.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Yeah, well, because normally you make your check in gold pieces for a week, right? That's how that works.
Roll,
Or you
roll
can
20.
divide it by 7 to do it by the night. But even if you're spending all that time to make performance checks to make money, you have to have a lot of downtime for that to matter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're crafting, you're gonna have downtime. So therein lies the rub too.
Yeah, but you're only making back like a small percentage. Go ahead, Donald.
Out of the first edition rules for crafting items to make a profit, it's more of a net loss for the most part, except for unless if you're making very expensive magic items or even potions at minimum cost to make maximum gold, like the alchemist. And then professions. For NPCs, the gold that they make, it's fine, but for the average adventurer, that is not a lot. 5-6 gold a night compared to what they would get in loot normally.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. If you're playing like a 10th level bard just to get that second tier of skill focus out, you're probably whipping around like a plus 25 to your perform.
At least.
You're making a little shy of 50 gold for a week of performing, which is more than enough to live on, but not even close to enough to adventure on.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't know. That's debatable. You spend 1 month. If you spend 1 month rolling out some good rolls on your performances, you could easily kit yourself out. And I mean, you could kit yourself out, which cuts away from the party's need to provide for you. As far as the adventure goes.
I'm not seeing the math because I'm just gonna say, let's assume there's 4 months in a 4 months in a month, 4 weeks in a month. And if you roll a natural 20 every time and you don't crit on skill checks, you're making, let's say, 200 gold. That's enough to buy a feather token.
So you get 4 of them. Yeah, is that like?
Or it's enough to buy 4 different health potions that could save somebody's life.
But that's not kitting yourself out. That's like kitting yourself out
Well,
means you make enough money to make to get your cloak of resistance from 1 to 2, or to that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, like I agree, Adam. It's supplemental. Like you're totally right there, but I'm talking about a character that's like 10th level already.
Kane, the one issue when it came to profession rules like that to make, say, 200 gold a week, you have to invest a lot of resources and ranks into that to be very good at it. And based upon the game,
that was 200 gold a month, Donald. A month.
200 gold a month. That is a decent amount, but you need to invest heavily in that area to be good.
I always thought the bard was
like.
I always thought the bard using his performance for that long, like the money was cool, but it was just the not the INN, the getting into whatever place the party needs to get into. That was the segue, and just like you had that little bit extra chump change after the fact.
Yeah, it would also depend if the bard had a patron too, but that's off the point. That's off of
you could do a little Liza Locklemore style.
I mean, you could put on a huge concert.
Yeah.
But anyway.
You know, on the subject of that, they did say something. They said something about patrons. There was a very small allusion in the blog. Like, you could do this and earn this much gold and maybe attract a patron, that kind of thing. So
yeah, there is a downtime thing for that.
So I imagine we'll be able to actually buy our magic stuff to help us kill people and creatures and dragons and things with our ability to play our musical instruments in Pathfinder 2nd edition, and I really like that for sure.
Oh, we didn't. It wouldn't be on the channel because we were having recording issues on and off and on and off and on and off when we were doing that game. But Adam sort of did a patron thing for us. We were playing beginnings and endings with the Procurer, which will come up later, but that's spoilers. Where we would we worked for him, and he would give us magic items that were not necessarily on book, and we would usually get them super cheap skis.
Seems
or
good.
for free. I'm just saying.
Hey, free is still super cheap skis. A 5-finger discount's still a discount, my man.
It's literally the superest of cheap skis. You can't get no cheap skier than that.
Ignatius got a little, what is it, hut? You know, this little hut that
Oh
he
yeah,
had?
you did give me like a collapsing mansion.
But it started out small and then grew with him, so it makes it even better when you do it that way.
Tommy, one thing that I do like about the perform skills that in first edition have and you need 3.5, if you get over a DC 30 in your performance skill, it even attract extra planar beings. So that is something AGM can easily work with in second edition if they keep the DC's value for what you can get.
Yeah, they definitely had some really wonky skill stuff back in the day. I think it was like a DC 30 balance, I think it was, check in 3.5, and you could literally walk on water. It might not have been balanced. It was something along those lines, and literally you just ran across the pond.
Yeah, those kind of rules I think they were funny, because they gave you like a scope for, hey, you're whatever level, and your bonus to this thing is like plus 47. You can run up walls and like stand on the ceiling without the use of magic because you're so kick-ass at whatever that thing is.
Well, I mean, if you want to hear about somebody doing that and attracting the attention of a deific or extraplanar being, then you could listen to T the Writers talk about Spoony the Bard or whatever it is. He literally played with gods and beat one of them.
One of the 3.5 supplement books had this. It is called a skill synergy. If you have certain ranks in certain areas,
You got bonuses in other skills. Yeah, I remember that.
That would be nice to see in second edition.
Well, we are getting like skill unlocks, not unlike like the Unchained Rogue, and we're getting skill feats as well. I guess that's a good time to. It's a little early. We might go back, but I guess this is as good a place as any to switch over to today's blog. Learning takes a lifetime, where the skills have been overhauled, much like the rest of everything else. It's like I like a lot of things that are happening here. You guys have all heard me say this by now on my actual video. I'm gonna say it here again. That, like, I remember the times when it was hide and move silently, when it was spot and search and listen. Like, I straight up remember a time when I was playing 3.5 with this dude, and I saw the thing, but I didn't hear the thing, so it got sneak attack. And boiling things down, not only does it make the math easier, then because there's less, like, skills floating around, and it's not, I can only have 4 ranks at first level and things like that, but it makes it easier to have more of your, like, role-playing cake and eat it too. For example...
Yeah, I also remember a time where your skill points at first level were 4 plus your intelligence modifier times 4, and you couldn't have more skill points in a skill than your level plus 3.
Yeah, that's just completely nonsensical. I think, anyway.
When it comes to the class skills, narrowing it down from 35 down to 17, my only concern is when it comes to the rules of NPCs using these rules, when it comes to them not having certain classes for class features. Such as the druid, ranger, able to communicate with animals effectively.
Now, I think they're going to receive that as, like, a class feat, or, like, maybe even, like, the Order of the Animal Druid can just, like, speak to animals right out the gate. Also, there's a background called Animal Whisperer, which might be what we need for that, assuming it doesn't get shoehorned into nature or diplomacy or even intimidate.
Or being a gnome thing.
Now, we have to play gnomes. We have to break out the gnomes. Otherwise, we can't talk. Yep, yeah, I'm with you. With you right there all the way.
No. Why do you guys hate gnomes?
Because they're awful and terrible.
Gnomes.
John gave them koala thumbs, and it...
What? Why? That's terrifying.
One of the guys we used to play with, this was also, like, before. The gnomes he ran in his game had 2 thumbs on both hands.
That's terrifying.
Actually, they weren't koala thumbs. I lied, because koalas have 2 thumbs on either hands, but they're like 2 thumbs just next to each other. You had a thumb on either side of the hand, like little thumb pincers. It was awful. I hated it. It was the worst thing I've ever heard.
It does indeed sound terrifying. So, the one thing I'm not really getting, and this is because I haven't... The only thing I took from Pathfinder Unchained was the Unchained Rogue, just straight out. We have something called lore now for our skills in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and I think it's Kane that understands how that one works more intrinsically, if you could enlighten us, my friend. Or at least on how it worked in 1E.
Okay, so the way, like, lore is part of the supplemental skill system in 1st Edition, where you can take extra skill points per level. I know Colin's using them in Rise of the Runelords. You basically get 2 or 3 extra skill points per level, but those skill points have to be put into skills like lore or artistry, and I think there might be a third one, but I can't remember for certain. But definitely lore and artistry were the big ones. And artistry would refer to a very specific type of like artisanal craft, like oil painting or something like that, or sculpting marble. You know, it didn't encompass a big like category of like sculpting or painting or like a bunch of different things. It was one very specific thing that you were good at, that you had, you know, that you hobby did in the background. And that's very similar to what lore was. Lore was like a hyper specific knowledge skill. You would put ranks in lore, and it could be lore of gold dragons. You knew a bunch of stuff about gold dragons. You love gold dragons. You think gold dragons are the hottest shit since sliced bread, and they're your favorite, and you know a bunch of junk about gold dragons, but you don't know anything about red dragons or blue dragons or green dragons, just gold dragons, because they're your favorite.
Yeah.
So what did that do, like, mechanically? Could you add it to other knowledge checks to get bonuses or something?
I think you rolled it instead, didn't you?
You could. I mean, you'd probably roll whichever was higher. I'd have to reread it to know if having overlapping skills gave you some circumstantial bonus. But like gold dragons was one very specific like example. You could also be like pubs from a specific city, or like horses bred by this particular, I can't think of the name for someone who breeds horses.
A breeder?
Rancher?
There's a specific name for it. It doesn't matter. From this specific ranch. Hostler. That's what it's called.
There we go.
Not to be confused with hustler.
No, very different thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Both concerned with horses, though.
So I'm seeing, like, because I'm looking at the skills now that we have in the playtest: Arcana, Nature, Occultism, Religion, Society, which is more sensical, local. Am I missing anything? I don't think I'm missing any of them. Those are, like, the classic knowledge checks of Pathfinder 1st Edition. I imagine Planes gets jammed into Occultism.
Well, that is something I have a question about for Paizo, if you're listening. How is Arcana going to be separated from Occultism, and Occultism from Religion? And I mean, is Occultism Planes? Then why would you need lore Planes if you want to do that? I mean, if you can have a lore of anything.
Well, Arcana is its own skill right now, and so is Religion.
Right. Correct.
Right.
So the 17 skills we have, just to read them off, are Acrobatics, Arcana, Athletics, Crafting, Deception, Diplomacy, Intimidation, Lore, Medicine, Nature, Occultism, Performance, Religion, Society, Stealth, Survival, and Thievery. And I imagine Lore and Craft are going to be our skills that always have that blank series of underscores next to them on digital character sheets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From where I'm seeing it, I imagine Occultism is, like, it will probably be knowledge of the planes. It'll also probably catch, like, I don't know. I'm gonna say knowledge of the planes, and then like lore is again, if that's in terms of specifics, that's like what you know about, say, like Nirvana or Axis or anywhere else like that.
Well, like Kane said, I don't think that lore in this version in PF2E is going to mean the same as in PF1E. I don't think it's going to be specific stuff. I think you're going to have like lore nature, lore nobility and stuff like that. I don't think that, at least I don't expect it to be as super specific as lore is supposed to be in 1E. If it is, that's going to get kind of taxy pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, actually, you know, come to think, watching the Glass Cannon stuff, it just totally slipped my mind until just now, but the rogue on his sheet had, like, lore, I think it was Underworld or something like that, which was supposed to be, like, society for the black market stuff. So perhaps that's what it means. Perhaps it's a little more, like, the more, maybe not even the specific, but, like, the other side of it, or the more, like, specialized aspects of it. Like, perhaps, like, Arcana is the basics of how magic works, and lore, perhaps, like, arcane magic, or primal magic, or even, maybe even something as minutia as, like, illusion, or evocation, or something. Maybe that's how it works.
I'm not sure. And again, I still don't know what they're going to... I guess it's just the occultism versus religion as far as knowing, because I get Arcana being different than religion, but is like occultism a mix between Arcana and religion? What are you going to ever roll a cult check for?
I feel like occultism might more specifically pertain to like a forbidden knowledge kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Defense against the dark arts.
So as I'm scrolling through the comments down here, I realized that at PaizoCon, our sense motive was rolled into perception, and that's not in the blog. That's somebody down there in the comments. So that's a thing.
I was about to ask about that too, because I was like, where's that? Which means it's going to be a lot harder to bluff people now.
Because everybody gets perception. That's no longer a tax. That's just flat. You have it.
Yeah, and
certain people will have different proficiencies, but that is really good.
Well, I mean, it's good for those trying to combat a fainting rogue. Is fainting going to be a thing? That's going to be a deception check. You're going to have good charisma rogues to be able to faint. So, I don't know. Charisma is probably more important now in PF2E anyway, because of the resonance system.
Yeah, for sure. You can't dump charisma. Well, I mean, the whole point by things being rebuilt, so dumping stats is probably gone. But if it's not, or worse, if it's like in Starfinder, where there's that little blurb that's like, hey man, you can put your stat to 7 if you want to. Literally, it does you no good. Don't be terrible to your party. Which I think is hilarious.
I don't even know why they bothered with that option. Why bother letting people dump a stat if they're not going to get anything from it?
In the name of good role-playing.
Yeah, but that's the problem. You don't need those stats to be that way to roleplay.
Yeah.
I mean, you could roleplay Necros the same and have him have a good charisma if you had so wanted to.
That is true.
He would have just been a gruff orc. So, I don't know. Stats don't always... I'm not super... I really hope they don't do like they did with Starfinder, because that was too much of a takeaway. I don't think they will. I think that in the playtest they'll give us the option to either... Rolling is classic, so I don't think they're going to get away from rolling. But point buy or standard array, I think they should be left in, and I think you should get something if you're willing to dump a stat. I think that dumping a stat becomes a problem more when the GM and the roleplay doesn't reflect it than it does otherwise.
Or when the GM knows you have a really bad charisma, so he packs all the charisma poisons.
Hey, I mean, that gnome really needs to watch it, because it doesn't... There's ways... Curse Just saying.
Bestow Curse would hurt
lots of
Quiblin
bad
for
stuff.
sure.
That'd be bad. But on the skill thing, another thing that they did was take all the thievery stuff, all the rogues type stuff, and put it into thievery, aside from stealth, of course. Which I understand why. I understand that they did it for the same reason they rolled acrobatics into. They rolled athletics in with swim and climb and stuff like that. I get that. But is your paladin, Kazaha has bluff, not he has bluff because of the way he moves and all that type of stuff. And he has sleight of hand because it helps him be flashy with his all of his swirling and stuff like that. But he'd never take a skill called thievery because he's a paladin. Even if he's a neutral good paladin, he doesn't like the idea of stealing.
I thought he was chaotic good.
No, he's neutral good. Don't think I'm chaotic good.
Chaotic good. I think.
Boom.
Kazaha? I don't think.
I could have sworn when I saw Shido was CG, but regardless, like, getting hung up on the names of what the skill checks are, that's one entirely different argument. I think it's really cool for, like, we were talking about this before I hit record. I and pretty much everyone here, the consensus was we wish that survival had got rolled into nature because, like, one of two things is going to happen in Pathfinder 1st Edition. Either A, you're going to be in the woods, or you're going to have scent, or you're going to be in the woods and have scent, and you're going to be rolling survival out the wazoo to do stuff, or B, it literally will never come up in your game at all. The rogue or the bard or the boy from Sandpoint or whatever will knowledge local, or hey, I'm from here, what do I know about this, and answer those questions entirely. The same is true for, like, sleight of hand. Or even, this is way to a lesser degree, but even, like, disable device. You might probably use disable device in a game. Probably traps are a thing. Locked doors are locked sometimes. But you might never pick somebody's pocket, but you might invest in the ability to do so, and then, like, literally it never happens over the course of that entire campaign. Now you just drop a rank in thievery, and there you go.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure if that's something that's a problem with the way the game's built, as much as, like, sleight of hand to being talked about, as much as it's a situation with players not thinking to use it because they just don't use it a lot.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you right now, if you send Magpie in and have him reverse pickpocket a bunch of necklace of fireballs into the pockets of a bunch of ogres,
and I'll cast Spark, and boom, there they go.
Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, that would be bad. That would be
bad. Amazing.
One thing I noticed when I look at all of the class skills in first edition, it depends on the game what gets used a lot and what doesn't get used, or have very little use. So it varies from game to game mostly.
Yeah. Oh, you know what else we're not seeing? I just realized we're not seeing it. There is no linguistics. Linguistics is not on this.
Oh.
So I imagine it's going to be like in Starfinder. I think Society in Starfinder gave you an extra language. I literally played like 2 Starfinder sessions with you guys. I don't know the system that well.
Yeah, it was like knowledge. It was knowledge local or whatever replaced knowledge local. He also gave you languages.
So one imagines that Society will do the same thing, or even I think it would be cool if it went like in a House Divided, where like put a rank in knowledge religion and you can learn Celestial, that kind of thing.
I mean, not for nothing, but what about the other things linguistics used to do? Like, is that also going to be rolled into knowledge society?
That is a good question.
I don't know.
So,
how am I going to forge documents? That was going to be something Magpie was really good at, but I decided against it in the long run.
That's a good question. Perhaps deception? That feels weird. That feels real weird.
It would fall under
thievery.
It would
Yeah,
fall
thievery I
under
can see.
thievery. and that's also a problem for me with thievery having all the skills. Now rogues need 2 skills: thievery and stealth. That's all
Well,
rogues
I mean,
need.
your rogue's gonna want the face
But-
stuff as well. They're gonna need acrobatics because you're gonna
they're gonna need
I mean-
deception for feigning.
you're gonna need athletics to
they
climb
only-
roofs and stuff.
Looking,
with the way
look,
it works, stealth. It says here in the blog that rogues get the most of the skills. Rogues are the skill monkeys. Period.
Well, and they
It
should.
doesn't matter
That's
what they
they're...
do to the bard. It doesn't matter what they do with the bard. The rogue will be the skill monkey because he gets a skill feat every level. What that means
Rough.
is, he's gonna have all this stuff by level 17. He can have proficiency in everything by level 17. That's high level. He's not going to do that. What's he gonna do? By level 17, he's going to be legendary in at least 4 different skills, and more than proficient in others because they progress differently. You go trained, expert, master, legendary. You got untrained, trained, expert, master, and legendary. I don't think it goes amount the ranks that you put in or something like that. It doesn't go by ranks that you put in. It goes by what skill feats you've taken, which means if they get a skill rank every level, they will be legendary at stealth before... They could possibly be legendary at stealth before level 3? No, 4.
That seems very,
Trained,
very unlikely.
1, 2, 3.
they
If
will
they
probably
start
put.
trained, if
See.
they start trained for their class, they would only have to have 1 more skill feat at level 1, because it says every level. So they take proficient, they take expert at level 1, master at level 2, and legendary at level 3.
But you can't do that at all, Adam, because if you scroll
What?
down and read, legendary medic as a prereq, feat 15.
Yeah, I think a lot of
Legendary
the
medic
feats. Well, why
They're
wouldn't
gonna have-
stealth?
Yeah, for real. Why wouldn't the one that like is going to be used on the subject of that? I think it's really sweet that the medicine check will be in combat and used, and not just like you have it and sometimes you will administer care, but mostly go talk to the cleric or the alchemist or the oracle or what have you. Now it's you can literally use an action. That guy's not dying anymore. Yeah, no, there's going to be hard prereqs for sure, so somebody can't be the most amazing
So
at
that
level
means-
4.
That does
Okay,
mean,
but
though, that they'll have legendary sneak at level 15. So,
Okay, but that
everybody's
aside,
gonna have legendary.
even if they had legendary sneak by level 4, that would still only be a +3.
It's a +3, and you can sneak all the time.
But that's a skill feat they have to choose, I believe. No, it doesn't. I lied. Upon becoming legendary, you further enhance by no longer needing to specifically declare. That just seems lazy to me. Like, you no longer have to say you're sneaking. We just assume you're sneaking. So, like, the
We
rogue,
just assume you're Skyrim
Well,
crouched everywhere.
the rogue can play with
With
his
that-
phone when combat is not happening, is what that tells me.
What
Tommy,
that also means is that rogue will not have to say, "Oh, I was sneaking. Didn't you see that?" They'll always be sneaking, which means they'll always be watching, technically, because you have to watch what you're doing when you're sneaking. Meaning can they never be surprised? How does that work?
Well, that's no different than uncanny dodge.
Yeah.
And barbarians get that too.
Tommy, one issue that may pop up based upon the party composition, a lot of the classes will have the same class skills, and then they're not going to have the class skills in the others that the certain classes do not get by default.
Yeah, well, I mean, that happens in every system forever. Like, if all 4 of us show up to a game that Colin is GMing, I don't know where that came from, but if that happens in that universe and all 4 of us are playing, like, fighters or barbarians or magi or something that's 2+ int, well, magi has big int, so whatever, fighters or barbarians, and we all have perception and, like, 1 knowledge thing, perhaps, that disparity happens here as well, and I think you're going to see a bigger, like, people will have a wider array of skills in 2nd edition, because, like, if you look up, it says that Well, I say look up as I'm scrolling up. The fighter in 2nd edition gets 3+ int for trained skills rather than 2+ int, which, like, mechanically that's only +1, but that's still in the party of 4 fighters, and that's a thing that could happen. The hype is real on the fighters and their ability to dance with the shields and have stances in Path of War. Now you're a little more spread out.
I'm jacked about that
It's nice
shield
to
wall.
have fighters.
Yeah, it should be super good.
Uh,
There's definitely a magic shield in Pathfinder 2nd edition that cannot
When-
be dented or broken. It's real good.
Whenever 2nd edition playtest books come out for one shot, someone have to do a I can't remember what the Spartan
The Phalanx
shield-
fighters?
Well, in a one shot, people should do a phalanx defense just for
back in the
for
day,
one shot.
well, back in the day, we still have them. But me and Joe, we never got to play them, but we have Phalanx fighters that we meant to play together, and we never got around to doing it in 1st edition. Which is one of the many reasons I'm probably going to play 1st edition in addition to 2nd edition for quite a while, because there's still a lot of stuff there I want to do.
You can weapon brace without being a phalanx fighter.
Right, there's just the ability to, oh god, I forget exactly what it did. Like, you gave your...
Yeah, when you're adjacent,
yeah.
you get like shield bonuses.
I
You
think
get, like, a
it's an
stacking
untyped bonus. I think it's like a +8 untyped in cover, and I remember I built it in,
+8.
eventually, yeah, it's +8 in cover and evasion and all this stuff. Like, I remember I built a Roman testudo out of like vampire thralls, and their armor class was in heavy armor, mind you, in like the 60s, and nobody could hurt them. It was super tight. Also, for the record, it's culture in Starfinder. I had to pop up my core rulebook, but it's culture that handed us an extra language by putting a rank into it, which I imagine is what society is.
Well, if I remember right, you don't put ranks in these.
Yeah, you don't, and I don't.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm hung up on.
It's
Is
tricky. How do you learn? Is like, because they talked about learning a new language in Downtime. Going back to Downtime, they talked about that, and I don't know.
maybe that's like a skill
Can
feat.
you-
Yeah, I think this Pathfinder 2nd edition moving forward, parts of it might be much more in line with the systems that I and Van from Black Dragon Gaming are more familiar with, maybe like a little better.
Yeah,
There's a lot less.
Yeah,
There's a lot
story
less
stuff.
math and a lot more like, here's an ability, use it.
Yeah, like bringing in retraining, making retraining a lot easier in your downtime. Making it specifically mentions conducting rituals,
now that sounds fun.
crafting, stuff like that. I mean, the downtime stuff is real, and how it interacts with your skills, I see why they're releasing them together, this information together. Yeah, it's going to have to be a downtime thing. I think a lot of this stuff that we're looking at for skills, like the educational type stuff, what do we know, is going to be wrapped up in downtime. Downtime's probably going to be a lot more important.
You know,
Or at least
maybe
how
that's
you
what
spend it.
maybe that's what occultism is for. Maybe it's for the rituals. That would make sense, right?
Oh, for like ritual casting and stuff,
Yeah.
magic circles.
Mm-hmm.
The
I
occultist
guess.
in 1st edition kind of has a mechanic like that, where they perform magic as like a long drawn out ritual that doesn't require the same resources.
That's
Well,
sweet.
I'm seeing, I mean, how I would, if it was me, I would put like Arcana. If you want to do a arcane ritual, you would use Arcana. If you wanted to do a divine ritual, would you religion? If you wanted to do, what is it, wild, that they call?
Primal?
Primal. If you want to do primal, it would be nature. But if you wanted to do something else, maybe that's the one that's occultism? I
Yeah.
don't know.
There's a lot of holes here that haven't been filled out. But it's just around the corner. We're already in June. It's 3 months down the road. Not even
Yeah,
2 months
and-
down the road, and then here's the playtest.
like no matter what, it's like it's so streamlined by now. Like they literally cut the number of feats in half.
Yeah.
On the subject
I
of
am
streamlining,
all
like,
about.
I like proficiency, I guess, because the math is easier, the numbers are smaller, but it feels like, I don't know how I feel about it yet, as opposed to like having a plus 60 something to intimidate and then just wrecking face forever. I imagine that's like why we're using proficiency.
Tying back into what, because we kind of brought this up before we started up, Donald was saying, when we read about like the administer first aid and then legendary progressive feat that you can invest in, I think it's cool that you can invest in it. I think it's a cool option. I'm not sure how to feel about it because Pathfinder 2nd Edition seems to be diminishing the, it's dissolving the walls that are between the classes very much. There's the barriers between the classes are very thin in 2nd Edition, from what I'm seeing, based upon what you want to do with your ABCs, your ancestry, ancestry, background, and class. You could do anything with a particular character if you invested in it, which is cool. On the one hand, it's really cool. On the other hand, I feel like it might be problematic because if you don't have a clear class, it's cool, but then I also see the drawback.
Yeah.
Tommy brought up before about how you thought that 2E was going to go back and get that classic, you need the fighter, you need the rogue, and you need the healer. That's what you need, the wizard, rogue, and healer, or the fighter, rogue, and healer, or you throw those, and those are the ones you need for sure, and then you build around what you need, that classic triangle of, that classic trifecta of adventuring. But with again, how thin the barrier between the distinctive classes is, if you have a fighter that also decides to build into the administer first aid because he gets so many feats that he doesn't have to worry about it, then all of a sudden you've got a legendary medic on that is doing some pretty powerful stuff. He's getting rid of disease, he's getting rid of blind and deafened and drained and innervation in an hour.
Yeah, that's super good. I recanted it on the video that I did before this, and I'm going to recant it here too. I think it's not necessarily going to be the case. Like, we've seen nothing in medicine that says, other than, like, take them from 0 to 1. We haven't seen, like, here's, like, cure light wounds in this, like, herbs and things, go. Haven't seen that. But if everybody in the party has the capability to essentially cast restoration and stabilize, then it's like
at 15th level.
Restoration at the very top end, but administer first aid at level 1. Eventually you could get away with not necessarily hugging the cleric for dear life, or the alchemist, or the paladin, or whoever it is does the heals in your particular setup. And I think that's cool. In my head, and I'm going to contradict myself really hard if you've watched A House Divided, but in my head, like, every single, well, it's a low magic setting, so it's not my fault. Every single player should be able to take care of their own character, like, in terms of healing and stuff. And in 1E, we had the Wand of Cure Light Wounds for that. In 2nd Edition, it feels like skills are going to cover that disparity a little bit, so maybe you don't necessarily, like, have the cleric or die horrible deaths. But again, we haven't seen anything in medicine that says it heals this much right away.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and I'm not sure we're gonna get a medicine mechanic that's like you restore hit points over time. Well, I mean, you will restore hit points over time, but like more quickly.
Yeah, probably not.
Well, does it not mention in there that you can? There's a feat called Battle Medic or something like that. You can actually heal somebody.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, we have seen that. That is the case, yeah.
Oh,
you
is it?
can do that.
Mm.
So that's what I mean. Because I'm someone who likes to occasionally play the cleric. That's just, for lack of a better word, a heal bot. Because I can then RP other stuff.
Healers always
Well, and that
have
would be
worth.
something you would discuss with your party. That like, hey, I'm gonna bring in this cleric character who's gonna be real good at like medicine, both traditional and magical. You guys don't have to spend skill feats on this. Like that would be something you bring up at session 0.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if you're having session 0s, it's not going to be as big a deal if everybody's communicating together on what they're making. Which we do. You know, the Black Dragon Gaming and Inn of Planar Crossroads, we all talk and stuff like that. But I've heard stories about groups that don't talk to each other about what they're making and bringing in.
And it's terrifying.
And yeah, or if you go to a pickup game or something like that, and you bring a cleric, you're like, every party wants a cleric. I'll be fine. And then you go in, and
It's a party of
everybody's
6
taking
clerics.
Well, I mean, if you're in first edition, your party is 6 clerics. You just wreck face.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
But you come into a pickup game and everybody's playing somebody who's not a cleric but has taken ways to, like Tommy said, take care of themselves instead of working as a unit group, and things start to get like it gets a little uncomfortable, because even though the cleric's a spontaneous caster, technically,
Yeah, they've got the extra spell slots just for heals or harms. So,
yeah,
like, I don't
all
think
those
you're
extra
just completely
spell
up a
slots are
creek.
gone.
Not
Well,
necessarily.
I mean, all those.
The extra ones, yeah, but even then, those are probably, I imagine, faster than Battle Medic. Battle Medic probably takes, like in Legendary Medic where it says it takes an hour, I think it was. Yeah, you imagine Battle Medic is a little less positive energy and a little more, like, lay on this bed for an hour and I'll bandage you up. So
Yeah,
it's
or
probably still just as relevant.
Even if it was like something you could do in combat, it probably still takes like a full round, whereas you casting a spell as one of your 3 actions.
And it'll probably be way less modal than heal being 1 action is touch, 2 action is range touch, 3 actions is burst.
You know, have we
Or
seen...
is that how they're gonna do it?
Yeah, that's how they're doing the heal spells.
I hadn't read that. That's good.
And the
I like
burst automatically, like, you don't have to decide whether or not you're healing the living or harming the dead. It's literally both in one shot.
You release the energy, yeah. You release the energy. You either release, no, you get to release healing energy to your friends and harming energy to your enemies.
Yeah,
Yeah, the way it should have been in the first place.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's very good. But I don't know about this. Have we haven't seen anything about half orcs or half elves, have we?
We have not.
No.
I wonder if they're going to make it to where your ancestry is either elf or orc, and that half elf and half orc is like picking 2 parents or something.
Well, they
Maybe.
don't do that in first edition. Not really. There's nothing in the book that says, you know, all half orcs are half human, half orc, or all half elves are half elf, half human.
Yeah, yeah.
You could just as
I don't
easily be like half orc, half. I
No.
don't know.
Not
Yeah.
dwarf. Not
To
dwarf.
name,
'Cause
to
they
name
would be
literally
like-
the worst thing possible: half gnome, half dwarf.
Stronger than both.
But
I think we're gonna see
I don't
half
know.
elves and half orcs as like races and not necessarily ancestry combat. Well, maybe it would be an interesting use of ancestry for sure to be able to pull that off. But I think maybe we would have heard about it by now. No, we wouldn't have.
I would think so.
Are there any half elves or half orcs among the core iconics? No, there are not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, which is a half elf or half orc?
There's
I was
I
gonna say
thought
there's
there was.
definitely.
oh, under the core iconics, you mean like wizard, sorcerer, stuff
Yeah,
like that?
yeah. Because I know there's like a
isn't-
half orc war priest and a half orc inquisitor, but I have no idea in the core. I think it's
I
mostly
can't-
human. It's
I
like humans
can't-
and 1 dwarf and 1 elf, and a goblin now.
I can't remember the iconic elf. Is she a
Merciel?
rogue?
She's a rogue, yeah.
Yeah, but she's also like a Forsaken, isn't she?
Forlorn, which is now that's an ancestry feat for elves. If you want to be a forlorn elf, it's there.
An elf raised by humans because the edge.
Yeah, see, we've seen elves, but we haven't seen orcs.
We will.
They're putting goblins in the core races. They're almost certainly going to be something for orcs.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. We haven't seen any half breeds.
They're probably going to be in the same blog at some point.
Tommy.
Well, I mean, they're giving us full elves, but they're not giving us the half elf yet.
Yes, they are. Just wait. We have 2 months. There's a lot of content that they have to get through.
Tommy,
you would think that they would release the updates to their core races first, right?
No. I think they would do it at, like, whatever weird schedule, because it's been really all over the place. Like, we've seen all the classes except this. I think the Sorcerer was in some of the Twitch stuff, but I haven't had a lot of chance to catch up on that. We haven't seen the Sorcerer or Barbarian or Monk yet, and there's more, I think, as well. They haven't seen the Bard.
I'm getting away from what I brought this up for. I brought this up because I was curious about the orcs, because the orcs have ferocity, including half-orcs. That means that Minister First Aid could keep them up forever, or how would that work?
Ferocity is my favorite ability in Pathfinder First Aid. It's so good. The only reason it crosses a full orc, not a half orc, is that the half orc gets it once a day, the full orc gets it forever.
Yeah, so, and on a success with First Aid, which isn't going to be that hard, you go from 0 to 1 hit point, and you end any persistent bleed damage.
Well, the success might be that hard. The success might be, like, equal to the DC for the guy who's dying to stabilize in and of itself.
The DC for either is 15.
Oh, never mind. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's not but it is one or the other. It's not both.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, you got to roll a 10. Yeah, half a chance.
Based upon what your modifiers are, you have a 50-50 chance getting a 10.
And the guy with ferocity stays up forever.
Tommy, I just had a thought for the heritage. This would be a pretty interesting but terrible image to think of: a half gnome and a half goblin.
Yeah, it's real bad. We actually made that joke in the Rune Lords thread. Well, I made that joke in the Rune Lords thread, where when Mal cut all of our names in half, all our characters' names in half, to be like, so this is the order, right? And it came out like some weird, like, World of Warcraft goblin or gnome sounding name that now I have to dig out so I don't sound like a fool on my channel here.
Too late.
Nope, I'm getting there.
Oh.
Just give me a second. I gotta scroll and I gotta hope that nobody pings. Oh, do-do-do. Do-do-do, doodle-do, do-do-do. I scrolled too high. It was Wee Mazmag, which is hilarious. It sounds like a Wee Mazmag. Sounds like a weird WoW goblin or a half goblin, half gnome.
There's now a half goblin, half gnome. Wee Mazmag.
There he is.
Black Dragon Gamey somewhere.
Good.
He forgot how to use the rest of the syllables. So
I know it just sounds like he's just like the end of his name is just a hard swallow.
Fantasy names, they are quite interesting. What people can come up.
That's why I just use like magic cards or magic cards backwards in the case of my orc.
Yeah.
Anywho, is there anything we're missing? I guess the only thing that I haven't brought up in these blogs that I think is relevant is in Starfinder, item level was a hard lock, if I understood it correctly. Like, if you weren't level 5 and it was item level 5, like, you just straight up could not use that item. Is that correct?
I think it was a recommendation for the GM not to give it to you until then.
Or there was, like, a paywall that you could...
Yeah, I mean, they had the item levels, but you didn't really need them because, like, items of that level comparative to you were already prohibitively expensive.
Yeah, it was superfluous is what it was.
Fair enough, okay.
It was it wasn't good. At first, we thought it was like you couldn't use it at that level until you were that level. Then we realized, oh, GMs, this is the level of the item. It's supposed to come around to them at about this level, which is dumb.
I mean, I like it, and I like the point I'm driving at is I like it in crafting as well, like in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, because as we all know here around the table, crafting in Pathfinder 1st Edition was like stupid, dumb, broken, easy. The easiest thing you could possibly, if you knew how to abuse that system, by like level 9, level 10, you're churning out in-game items. Now there's that hard block of you must be this level. And then like it keeps the power disparity from going too far off the end.
For me, I'd rather have requirements in the item itself than item level requirement, than a player level requirements, because it brings meta into something that could very easily be just role play.
Yeah, no, I understand the complaint. It's very gamey. I mean, we're playing a game, but like it's a very like gamey meta video game quality to assign to things that are also like supposed to exist as part of the game and as part of the meta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they exist as part of us existentially. So how do you reconcile it, type thing?
I think I like it because it simplifies the mechanic, but I also like I get why you have a problem with it, because it just sort of is like, why is this way?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't mind including level as a requirement. Like if you said there's this legendary sword, but you have to be there's this legendary sword, but you need to have these certain things available to you. One of which may be a certain level of fighter to use, because it was the sword of a great legendary warrior that was of that level or higher. Epic warrior. So for like artifacts and stuff like that, it's cool. But for like regular items that you yourself can craft, I don't know. I don't know.
Having a level requirement to use certain items, it's definitely nice just for the theme of it alone.
Yeah, it's very necessary because again, like you could churn out really powerful items really easily if you spec into spellcraft. Like you straight up didn't need any of the requirements. Just have a high spellcraft, grab that feat, go to town. That's all you needed. Like I don't know what Lucia's spellcraft is off the top of my head.
It is 20. It is 23 at the moment.
Which means Lucia is killing it at level 9.
The only items I cannot make are what would be level 15, 16, as so those DCs would be DC 35, 40. Even with me casting all the buff spells, it's a 50-50 chance if I'm going to miss and make curse items, which I don't like making curse items.
No one does. But like in 2nd edition, it appears that that won't be the case because that lock is there, and also it's spend some of the gold, spend the time, and then you can either in 4 days spend 100% of the price of the item, no 50% reduction like in 1st edition, to immediately 4 days later, here's your thing, or with your proficiency start hacking the discount around, which is another, like it's a balancing thing, because if everything is half off with according to like your item crafter, wealth by level goes out the window incredibly quickly. And
well, wealth by level is awfully arbitrary too.
Yeah,
wealth by level.
There's really no such thing as wealth by level when you consider how varied our different games are.
That's true. It's kind of in the same vein
by level,
in the same vein that like that CR is
progress.
completely arbitrary as well. Regardless, it's easier to hit that ceiling in like with an item crafter in the party than like to hope the merchant. Like I really like the way Joe does his stuff, as much as it irks me. to like you have to ask the merchant, and maybe he has it. He's probably charging you double. That's what in second edition we're supposed to get around.
Oh, you mean like Misadventures of the Southern Colony, or
I have no idea.
Something like that.
I haven't really paid. I watched the show.
You heard Addy.
Oh yeah, he likes this. He
over-
spends his money really hard, but that's because he's generous. And silver and copper, I also feel, is confusing. And here's gold.
He doesn't just do it like one thing. I mean, he overpays for everything, and he doesn't bother to haggle. He just pays it.
I don't haggle either.
I don't either.
I don't like haggling and just pay things for their full.
He doesn't.
Hey, wait a minute. On that subject, there's no appraise skill.
It
probably
fall under
like
one
crafting?
of the other class skills somewhere.
Thievery, but that's the 5-figure discount.
No, yeah, I think you're right, Tommy. I think it'll fall under whatever you're crafting.
Like whatever you're buying, I guess. What are you buying? The creepy dude from Resident Evil 4 shows back up with his trench coat, and you kill him, and he's conveniently at the next save point. What are you selling?
Yeah.
Adam, I'm surprised by this point in the one-on-one game you're running that the character haven't bartered to lower the price lower. Eventually, one of the days, he's going to be charged more than he's being charged already.
Well, he's also 8.
Yeah.
He also is used to Skyrim. Everywhere he goes is the winking skeever. So he doesn't understands the bartering. Anywho, we're at the hour mark, and that's probably a good place to sign off. Thank you to the End of Planar Crossroads for coming out and hanging out and all that stuff. And Donald, thanks for holding it down for the underground here, Black Dragon Gaming. We'll be over at their house next week, and again, you're getting half the conversation if you just watch the stuff here. So do be sure to check out the End of Planar Crossroads. If for no other reason, then they're doing a big thing real soon. I won't tell you more about it because Adam will be mad at me, but I know the information, and it's real great. But for now, we're going to get out of here. Say bye, guys.
Bye.
Everywhere is the winking skeever.
Bye.
There it is.